Hello, dear viewers. The Bush family. For generations, that name has carried weight, representing not just political power, but an enduring story of family, faith, and resilience. From the Oval Office to the quiet family gatherings behind closed doors, the Bushes have stood as a symbol of American service, unity, and strength. Among them, Jenna Bush Hager has emerged as a voice of her own, not through politics, but through heart. A woman who blends warmth, humor, and authenticity, she's become one of television's most beloved personalities. We've watched her grow, laugh, stumble, and share her journey, not as a distant figure, but as someone who feels like a friend. And yet, even the most radiant smiles can hide quiet pain. Behind Jenna's laughter and her bright on-screen presence lies a story marked by loss, reflection, and the profound strength it takes to face grief with grace. Recently, Jenna opened her heart to the world in a way that very few public figures dared to do so. She spoke about the shadows that have lingered in her family's story, the kind of grief that seeps through generations, shaping how love and loss are understood within a family. Her words, raw and deeply moving, invited millions to reflect on something universal, that even the families who seem the strongest, the ones who stand tall before the world, carry their own private pain. To truly understand the depth of Jenna's openness, we must first understand the family she comes from, a family rooted in public service and unshakable values. From President George H.W. Bush and First Lady Barbara Bush to President George W. Bush and First Lady Laura Bush, the Bush legacy has always represented duty, compassion, and faith. They have faced the world's praise and its scrutiny with the same calm dignity. But behind that public composure, they too have endured heartbreak. It was within this family of strength that Jenna learned the importance of grace, the quiet power to keep going when life feels unbearable. One of the earliest tragedies that shaped the Bush family's story happened long before Jenna was born. Her father, George W. Bush, and mother Laura lost their first child, a little girl named Robin, to leukemia at the tender age of 3. For Jenna, Robin was a sister she never met, yet she's a presence that shaped her life. Growing up, she often sensed that loss woven into her parents' hearts, not as an open wound, but as a quiet shadow that deepened their compassion and faith. She has spoken about how that loss defined her parents, how it made them cherish every moment, every smile, every small joy. And though she didn't experience that grief firsthand, it became part of her story, a reminder that love, once given, never truly disappears. When Jenna recently revisited that chapter of her family's history on the Today Show, it wasn't just a moment of reflection, it was a moment of deep connection. Her voice trembled slightly, her eyes glistened as she spoke about how grief doesn't end, it transforms. It becomes part of who we are. She shared how her parents' strength in the face of unimaginable loss became a guiding light in her own life, especially when her own family faced difficult times. Because while the world may see her as a cheerful television host, behind the scenes, Jenna too has wrestled with private heartache. She spoke candidly about how her family has faced emotional pain, moments of fear, and the struggles that come with navigating life under constant public scrutiny. It wasn't just about losing loved ones. It was about mental health, family tension, and the quiet burden of trying to stay strong when the world expects perfection. In her recent reflections, Jenna revealed how deeply the isolation of the pandemic affected her family. Like millions around the world, they faced moments of uncertainty and emotional exhaustion. The laughter around the dinner table sometimes felt quieter. The distance from loved ones made even small joys feel fragile. But through it all, Jenna found herself turning again and again to what she had learned from her family's legacy, that pain and love often coexist, and that faith and humor can carry us through even the darkest times. Her relationship with her parents has always been one built on deep love and mutual respect. George and Laura Bush instilled in their daughters a simple but powerful truth, that no matter what life throws at you, family is the anchor that holds you steady. So when Jenna speaks about hardship, she does so with a kind of wisdom that only comes from living through it, not just as a witness, but as someone who has felt the weight of it firsthand. During one particularly emotional moment on the Today Show, Jenna admitted that there were days she struggled to stay composed, days when she would walk into the studio carrying the heaviness of her private battles. But still, she showed up. She smiled, she listened, she connected. And that, perhaps, is the truest definition of resilience. Not pretending everything is fine, but finding the courage to keep showing up anyway. Jenna has often said that her work became a form of healing. The laughter she shared with her co-hosts, the stories of hope she brought to her viewers, those moments became her way of mending. She found that when she lifted others, she was in some way lifting herself too. But healing doesn't happen overnight. It comes in waves. Some days peaceful, some days crashing. And through it all, Jenna leaned on her husband Henry and their 3 children, who have become her greatest joy and her constant reminder of what truly matters. She's spoken about how her kids, Mila, Poppy, and Hal, gave her perspective when the world felt heavy, how their laughter, their innocence, and their unconditional love reminded her that even after heartbreak, life has ways of surprising you with new beginnings. There's something deeply powerful about how Jenna shares her story, not for sympathy, but for solidarity. She wants her audience to know that it's okay to hurt, it's okay to cry, and it's okay not to have it all together. Because strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about finding your way back after you do. In one heartfelt reflection, Jenna said, "Grief changes you, but it doesn't have to break you. It can make your heart bigger, softer, and more open." That idea, that pain can deepen our compassion, has resonated with millions. And in that message lies the core of who Jenna Bush Hager truly is, a storyteller who turns her own struggles into light for others. Her openness has also encouraged meaningful conversations about mental health, something she feels passionately about. She's urged people to speak up, to check in on loved ones, and to seek help when the burden feels too heavy to bear alone. For Jenna, healing has meant embracing honesty over perfection. It has meant learning that vulnerability doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. In recent months, she's spoken about finding peace in simple things. Reading bedtime stories to our children, cooking family meals, taking long walks, and reflecting on faith. These are the quiet moments where she's found gratitude, even amidst pain. She's also reminded her audience that healing isn't linear. Some days memories bring smiles, other days they bring tears, but both are part of the same beautiful, messy process of being alive. Through her story, Jenna Bush Hager has become more than a public figure. She's become a mirror for so many who are walking through their own valleys of loss and healing. Her courage to speak about grief, her willingness to be seen as imperfect, and her deep love for her family make her story one of profound hope. Because in the end, what Jenna teaches us is that life is not about avoiding pain. It's about facing it, feeling it, and allowing it to transform us. Her journey reminds us that behind every smile, there may be a story of strength. Behind every tear, a memory of love, and that through family, faith, and openness, we can find our way through any darkest times. So if you take one thing from Jenna Bush Hager's story, let it be this: never underestimate the power of honesty. Never be afraid to share your pain. And never forget that love, even through loss, has the power to heal. Because grief doesn't mark the end of love. It simply changes its form, from presence to memory, from voice to echo, from hand to heart. And as Jenna continues to walk her path with grace and authenticity, she reminds us all of what truly matters: not perfection, but presence; not appearances, but truth. So hold your loved ones close, speak your heart while there's still time, and when life hurts, remember, healing begins not when the pain ends, but when we allow ourselves to feel it fully. Through her words, her laughter, and her courage, Jenna Bush Hager continues to teach us that even in the most painful chapters of life, there is always a reason to hope and a reason to love again.